The massive halls of Xylox Prime Combat Academy echoed with the footsteps of elite alien warriors. This was the most advanced combat training center in the galaxy, where only the strongest species trained to become future warlords. Every kid here had superior strength, speed, or deadly abilities. That's why when Alex Carter, a human, walked into the training hall, the entire academy erupted in laughter. "Is this a joke?" a reptilian warrior hissed, his sharp fangs gleaming. "He won't last a minute," a massive insectoid alien chuckled. Humans were considered one of the weakest species in the galaxy. They had no claws, no exoskeleton, no natural weapons. Compared to the towering alien cadets, Alex looked like a child among giants. At the center of the hall, Instructor Zokar, a battle-hardened veteran, watched the human with cold, calculating eyes. "Since you are new here, human, let's see what you can do," he said. His deep voice silenced the laughter. Zokar pointed towards Kragar, a 7-foot-tall reptilian warrior with thick scales and brute strength. "You will fight Kragar in a combat test." The crowd of alien cadets cheered. Kragar was the Academy's top fighter. No one had ever lasted more than a few seconds against him. Kragar cracked his knuckles and grinned. "I'll try not to break you too fast, little human." Alex didn't react. His face remained calm. He simply stepped forward, rolling his shoulders. "Whenever you're ready." The room fell silent. The aliens expected the fight to be over in one punch. Zokar raised his hand. "Begin." With a roar, Kragar lunged forward, his powerful fists swinging straight for Alex's head. The crowd held their breath, expecting a brutal knockout. But then, Alex moved. With incredible speed, he sidestepped the attack, ducked low, and before anyone could react, he struck. Kragar's massive body hit the floor with a loud thud. The entire hall went dead silent. The aliens stared in shock. Alex stood over his fallen opponent, his expression unchanged. He dusted off his hands and looked up. "That was a warm-up," he said. And the aliens felt something they had never felt before. Fear. The training hall was frozen in silence. No one could believe what had just happened. The air inside the training hall felt heavy. No one spoke. No one moved. "How did he do that?" a 4-armed insectoid muttered. "The way the human fought, it wasn't brute force. It wasn't luck. It was something far more dangerous. That wasn't strength," a feline-like alien whispered. "That was something else." Instructor Zokar took a slow step forward, his sharp eyes locked onto Alex. Kragar, one of the strongest warriors in the academy, lay motionless on the cold floor. His chest rose and fell with ragged breaths, his massive body barely able to move. The alien cadets who had been laughing minutes ago now stood in stunned silence. Their expressions shifted from amusement to uneasy confusion. Kragar, the academy's top warrior, was lying motionless on the floor. The reptilian groaned, his claws scraping against the ground. As he tried to push himself up, his yellow eyes were filled with disbelief. How? How had a weak human taken him down with a single move? The alien cadets looked at each other, confusion and unease spreading through the crowd. Instructor Zokar narrowed his eyes at Alex. He had seen thousands of fights, but never had he seen something like this. The human hadn't just won. He had made it look effortless. Kragar growled and staggered to his feet. His pride was shattered, and his anger burned hotter than ever. "That was a lucky move," he spat. His tail lashed behind him, a clear sign of rage. "Fight me again." Alex tilted his head, as if considering it. Then, with a casual shrug, he said, "If you insist." Zokar frowned. Something about Alex's confidence was unsettling. The way he stood, relaxed but alert, wasn't normal for a cadet. This wasn't arrogance. This was experience. The instructor raised his hand again. "Begin." This time, Kragar didn't hold back. He charged at full speed, his claws extended, his massive tail whipping behind him for balance. But Alex was faster. In a blur of motion, he sidestepped at the last second, his footwork precise. Before Kragar could adjust, Alex grabbed his arm and twisted, using the reptilian's own strength against him. There was a loud crack. Kragar let out a roar of pain as his entire body was flipped into the air and slammed onto the ground. Hard. A few cadets gasped. Others took a step back. Kragar groaned, but this time, he didn't get up. His body twitched, and then He went still. Alex stepped back, hands still loose at his sides, completely unbothered. The silence in the hall was no longer just shock. It was fear. Zokar's gaze darkened. His voice, though calm, carried a dangerous edge. "That was not luck," he muttered. Alex finally looked at him, his expression unreadable. "No, it wasn't." Zokar's voice cut through the silence. "Cadet Carter." Alex turned his head slightly, raising an eyebrow. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't even sweating. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" Zokar asked, his tone unreadable. Alex sighed as if he had been asked a boring question. "That," he gestured lazily toward Krager's unconscious form. "That was just basic combat training." The room tensed. The words hung in the air like a shadow, growing larger with every second. "Basic." One of the cadets finally spoke, his voice shaking slightly. "You're saying this isn't even advanced human combat." Alex shrugged. "Not even close." Whispers spread through the crowd. If this was just basic training, then what did real human warriors fight like? Zokar's expression darkened. He had fought countless battles, trained under masters of warfare across the galaxy. But something about this human, his casual tone, his effortless movements, was deeply unsettling. He had assumed humans were weak. What if he was wrong? Alex looked around at the stunned faces, then gave a small, amused smile. He could see it in their eyes now. They weren't just surprised. They were afraid. And for the first time, the elite alien class of Xylox Prime realized a terrifying truth. Humans were not weak. They were predators. The training hall no longer felt like a place of learning. It felt like a battlefield before the first strike. A silence thick with tension and fear. Instructor Zokar was no fool. He had trained warriors from countless species, seen elite fighters with razor-sharp reflexes, immense strength, and deadly instincts. But this human, this was different. He took a step forward, his piercing gaze fixed on Alex. "You say this is basic training," Zokar said, his voice low and careful. "Then tell me, what does advanced human combat look like?" The alien cadets turned toward Alex, waiting, their earlier arrogance now replaced with unease. Alex exhaled, his arms still relaxed at his sides. He wasn't showing off. He was simply telling the truth. "Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years," he began. "Back on Earth, every nation, every culture has perfected different ways to fight. We train from childhood. Hand-to-hand combat, weapons, strategy. We don't just fight. We adapt." A reptilian cadet swallowed hard. "Adapt." Alex nodded. "Your species might rely on strength. Others use speed or technology. Humans, we use everything. We study our enemies. We evolve. We turn weaknesses into weapons." The room stayed silent, but the shift was clear. They were no longer looking at him as a weak species. They were looking at him as a threat. Zokar folded his arms, his expression unreadable. "You say all humans train this way?" Alex smirked. "Not all. Some train much harder." A shiver ran through the crowd. Krager, still groaning on the floor, managed to speak. "And what are those humans called?" he asked weakly. Alex's eyes flickered with something cold. "Soldiers, special forces, assassins." He paused, then added, "Warriors." The alien cadets shifted uncomfortably. Even the strongest among them had never met an actual warrior. Not like this. Zokar's jaw tightened. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. And now, for the first time, they were realizing their mistake. The silence in the hall was deafening. No one laughed anymore. No one mocked the human. They only stared. Instructor Zokar watched Alex carefully. This wasn't arrogance. It wasn't bluffing. The human had spoken with the calm certainty of someone who had seen true battle. The cadets had always believed humans were weak. But now, they weren't so sure. A tall, armored alien with deep blue skin finally broke the silence. "If this is true, if humans are trained to fight from childhood," he hesitated, "then why haven't we heard of them being great warriors before?" Alex gave a small, knowing smile. "Because we don't start fights." His gaze swept across the room. "We finish them." The weight of his words settled over the cadets like a heavy storm. For the first time, the elite warriors of Xylox Prime, beings who had conquered worlds, commanded armies, felt something new. Doubt. Word spread quickly through the academy. whispers in dark hallways. Nervous glances, the legend of the human warrior was born. Alien generals heard the rumors. Intelligence officers dug into Earth's military history, and what they found was terrifying. They learned about Earth's brutal wars, its elite special forces, its ability to turn even the weakest soldiers into dangerous weapons. One thing became clear. If the galaxy ever went to war with humanity, humanity would not lose. Instructor Zoker finally spoke, his voice softer than before. "You are dismissed, Cadet Carter." Alex nodded, then turned and walked toward the exit. His job here was done. But as he left the hall, he could feel their eyes on him. Watching, worry, afraid, and he smiled. Because now, they finally understood.